Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill, presented by Superbook Sports. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
We are not Rachel V. Hill. She will be back on Monday. He's Cecil and Will. I'm Will Peterson. Thanks for tuning in to Coffee Break on this Friday. C's looking good, man. You going to give maximum effort today?
I am giving maximum effort, hopefully every day, but I got my gamer fuel, so I'm ready to go, man. Ready, charged up, and ready to talk some sports with you.
Gamer fuel, baby. I love it. Let's start with a busy Kareem Jackson day yesterday at the Centura Health Training Center. First of all, you get Sean Payton up at the podium saying, yeah, I called Kareem and told him, we're on a roll. Don't mess this up. You know, and you get a Dove Valley media laugh. And then Kareem in the locker room tells Andrew Mason, yeah, he called me about 8 on Tuesday morning and said, we're rolling. Don't screw this up. I can't use all the language he wanted. So, Cease, my question for you is, Sean was sort of half joking, but there was some truth to that as well, given what Kareem Jackson's 2 ejections have done to the Broncos this year, correct?
Yeah, he's hurt his team. You know, and Sean Payton is never going to not prove a point, whether it's talking to Jarrett Bell on his gamer fuel or double espressos or whatever excuse. There's a reason they said that about Nathaniel Hackett. There's a reason he says that. Don't blank it up to Kareem Jackson, because it's true, man. Like, he's hurt his team, and not just from missing games, but he's hurt his team within the game. And if you get kicked out within the game and you're going to Delaren Turner-Yell, just look no further than the Bills game when we saw PJ Locke in there. Josh Allen couldn't do anything. And then Locke gets hurt. Here comes Delaren Turner-Yell. And now Josh Allen's going nuts and they're targeting Turner-Yell. So yeah, Kareem Jackson, he's hurt this team enough. Now, to his point, and I was in the locker room yesterday talking to Kareem there with Mace, they didn't tell him what to do. They didn't tell him what he can do, what he can't do, the league, that is. Yeah. So he's talked to John Runyon. He's talked to Derek Brooks. There is no black and white, do this, don't do that. So he's just going to lower his target angle, and now everyone's knee's going to get shredded. But this is the NFL that you're in. And when players are left with this curiosity of, I don't know what I can and can't do, well, they're just going to lower their target angle and take your knees out.
Yeah, my bad. I'm not giving you credit for the locker room, too. You're just a man of many talents, because I was watching Orange and Blue Today yesterday, and you zip from the locker room over to Orange and Blue Today. So my bad. Cecil Lammy nearly in 2 places at once, pulling it off. Let's talk a little more about that second point you brought up, though, and I know Mace wrote about this at denversports.com, that Kareem just can't get answers from the league. This is a league that already suspended him 4 games. Had to reduce it to 2 in the appeal process, and now they won't really tell him what he can and can't do. Does the league kind of have it out for Kareem Jackson at this point, or is that a little tinfoil hat?
No, not at all. Not whatsoever. And they definitely do. Will, we could have this conversation. If he has another big hit, he might never play football again. That's where we're at with this. And not only because he's old, and this is probably his last year anyway, but the league definitely has it out. They're definitely making an example of Kareem Jackson. Say what you will, what that says about the league. I don't think it says much good about this league. But again, this is also a league that pretends to care everything. And it's so corrupt. I feel so sad when I actually think about it. But everything, and I mean everything that this league pretends to care about, they actually don't care about. We care about player safety. No, you care about not getting sued. When all these guys are having CTE problems, and it takes dark turns, to be sure. Like, that's what it is. So you're setting an example, Kareem Jackson. Yes, the game is changing. Yes, it has to change. We know a lot more about concussions than we did when you and I were playing sports. And hell, I got concussed in a basketball game. So it can happen in any sort of sport. But like, we know now the brain bruises that they are. We know the serious nature of those injuries. So I'm glad that they're trying, but in this league where it's built on violence, you can't legislate the violence out of this game. And Kareem Jackson is just kind of the, poster of, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. Well, what can we do? I don't know, but we're not doing that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I think, not only could the league just suspend him for the rest of the year if he has another one of those and it's at the end of his career. But I also think Sean sort of has a 3 strikes you're out with Kareem. And that was hence the phone call on Tuesday morning. Because let's look at this, Cease. Against Washington, they were up 21-3 when he blows up Logan Thomas in the back of the end zone on 4th and goal. They get a stop there. It's 21-3 Broncos ball. Game over. They beat the Commanders. They lose 35-33. And against the Packers, it kind of had the same feel, the same vibe in the stadium when he got ejected. And let's not forget, the Broncos had to get a pretty generous holding call and then a pick at the very end of the game to not lose that game 20-19 to Green Bay. I think if I'm Sean, I'm looking at it, I'm desperate because Caden Stearns is hurt. PJ Locke is hurt. We'll get to PJ in a little bit. But I don't want to play Turner Yell. So I am desperate to get Kareem back in there. At the same time, if he does this to me a third time, it might be the Broncos who take the action if we're being honest.
Yeah, and it might be, and for their benefit, I guess. But here's the problem that we come into. It's the lack of depth. It's the lack of depth at that position. And why can't JL Skinner get a jersey? Like Delaren Turner Yell is not good. And I'm not going to bring up the fact that he was the pick right before Tariq Woolen, although I just did, because I'm never going to let that go. I'm never, ever. I know people are sick of it. That's an all-pro cornerback. All-pro cornerback. And you took Delaren Turner Yell right before him, George Payton. Terrible move. Delaren Turner Yell can't play on defense. Why can't JL Skinner get a jersey? Is he really that bad? But he's not so bad that you can put him on the practice squad because you're afraid people are going to steal him away. It's like, okay, and it comes into drafting and picking up players that are injury prone. Caden Stearns is great. He's hurt all the time. PJ Locke, we've seen it. He's really good. He's hurt all the time. And then the guy that you got that's available, Delaren Turner Yell, can't play defensively. He's a fine special teams player, but you didn't draft him for special teams, baby. So like the problem with the Broncos that they run into with taking their own hands onto Kareem Jackson situation, it's like, yeah, but you don't have any depth and you're winning now. And I feel this ball that they've gotten rolling, it's so razor thin, the line between winning and losing in this league. Some sort of Kareem hit, some sort of suspension, whatever. Now you're talking about not making the playoffs when we're just getting excited about the possibility of making the playoffs.
All right, let's keep it moving. Let's get on to the Walton-Penner family ownership group spending $250,000 for a new playing surface at Mile High. Totally new field. Mike Klessart, 9 News and 104.3 The Fan Broncos Insider points out, this just isn't inside the 20s or outside the hashes or inside the hashes. This is a whole freaking field for a second straight season, Cease. They paid $400,000 for one game last year against the Chargers. They paid $250,000 for 4 games the rest of the way. The Broncos aren't going to get a home playoff game, so that's what it will be. First of all, do you like this move, like replacing the turf mid-season? And second of all, how'd they get such a good deal the first time, or did they get ripped off? Or did they get ripped off the first time and get a good deal the second time?
Yeah, is it some sort of write-off? Like we're going to spend more and just take it as a loss? I don't know, but it's good. It's good to not have a cash-strapped ownership group, and it's good for the ownership group to recognize what players need to succeed. And they need a better facility. Okay, that's coming. Yep. They need all the best technology and all the best, cold tubs and workout machines and all that stuff. That's all coming, and some of it is at the facility now. And they need a better playing surface. So the stadium upgrades, the largest outdoor scoreboard, all that. Okay, that's fine. These are all good things, but what do the players need? And I think really that's kind of an emphasis going forward for the Walton-Penner Group. And it's one that players will recognize. They will recognize not only the fact that you're not working for a cash-strapped team, Chargers, Bengals, teams like that. You're with the league's premier ownership group. And doing moves like this just emphasizes that they can be. Now, the team needs to back it up, right? Yeah. But they themselves, top of the top in terms of ownership groups.
Yeah, a little more info on this. Cliss reported that this was always the plan because there was that Air Force Army game last weekend, and they painted the end zone. So he said that should have been the biggest tip-off. They weren't going to let him throw blue paint on that thing and then try to, get it back to Broncos colors, because we've all seen that look on TV when it looks terrible, when you can still sort of see the old logo. So he said that should have been the biggest clue they were planning on doing this. And I think my thought on it, Cease, is let's go a little bigger picture here, right? They have spent money at every corner. First of all, they spent the most money in free agency of anyone. We know about the $400,000 in turf last year. We know about the $100 million in stadium upgrades. We know, as you mentioned, the $175 million for the new facility. We know about the $100,000 to send the Colorado School of Mines student body to go watch their national championship team in Texas last year. For as much as there's some weird haters in Broncos country, for lack of a better word, that are, oh, well, Greg Penner doesn't know anything.
I don't know if that's on your side or my side, Will, but either way, we're here, right?
I'm here. Did I go out? Did you go out? Did we both go out?
I think you're getting fuzzy on my end, but either way, like it's good to have this ownership group. I think that's how we can wrap that up. And honestly, they're setting a standard. I mean, it sounds kind of odd, but we should just expect this going forward, right? That whatever they need, facility, turf, they might change the turf again next year. Who knows? But they're setting the standard, and it's a very high standard for sure.
Well, and just to put a bow, I don't know when my monologue got cut off with the internet or whatever, but just to put a bow on it, what I was saying is there's some people who say, well, Greg Penner doesn't know football, so it was a bad decision to sell it to a guy that doesn't know football. Well, guess what? He has proven at every corner he is willing to spend. I would much rather have an owner who is willing to spend every single turn than a guy who knows football. Because guess what? Jerry Jones apparently knows football, and they haven't won the Super Bowl in 30 years.
Yeah, and let me jump back in on that, Will, because you bring up a great point. And the fact that people said, oh, this is part of their portfolio. No, I see Greg Penner multiple times per week as I'm at the facility, 3, sometimes 4 times a week, mostly 3, based on Sean Payton's schedule. Guess who's there with him? Greg Penner. And Kerry Walton-Penner's out there as well. So this ownership group is very hands-on. The Walton-Penner Group, and Greg Penner specifically, he may not know football, but he wants to learn football. And he's putting people in place that he can trust, like a Sean Payton. And then he's learning what do the players need. He's studying this. And when he gets it right, watch out. It's why I said dynasty when this team was bought by the Walton-Penner Group. And people say, you're crazy. Like, those type of people don't make mistakes when it comes to business. And make no mistake, this is a business, but they're going to study it. They're going to learn it. They're going to put the pieces in place to win, and it could win for a while.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's well said. That this was the best thing that could have happened to the Broncos when they decided to sell the team, was go to the richest buyers by a mile. And to their credit, they've held up their end of the bargain, not skipping steps. So I think the Broncos are lucky to have him. Let's move on to the injuries. More injury news comes out for the second day in a row. Yesterday, the Broncos didn't see Ben Powers or PJ Locke on the field. Jerry Jeudy was limited. But, Cease, we kind of have some good news because Sean Payton already had his media availability today at 9:05 this morning, which is, Sean being Sean and just saying, I'm going to talk at 9 on a Friday rather than at 2:30. He did say Ben Powers is going to practice today. Jerry Jeudy is going to practice today. Didn't see anything on PJ Locke. He by far feels the most iffy. But out of Jeudy, Powers, Locke, where does your attention go? Because that's 3 starters, and that's an O-line that's been together, the entire season. That's Locke we've hit on is a huge part of their secondary right now. And that's Jeudy, who they didn't trade, and in theory is the number 2 wide receiver on this team. Good news that Powers and Jeudy will practice today, but all 3 injuries significant in my eyes.
Yeah, when I was watching Jeudy yesterday, I was like, something's amiss here. Now, he would be the least important of the 3, not because he's not talented, but because, we got to get Marvin Mims out there. Right. And Mims is the 1-for-1 replacement for Jerry Jeudy. Not to give too much away from practice, but when Judy's not in, Mims is in. Right. Guess who's getting the ball? Marvin Mims. So we'd all love to see that. Locke is the one that's really disappointing because, man alive, Kareem's back. Okay, good. But your depth is dried up, as we've been talking about. And then there's Powers. Powers is one of those seasoned veterans. It reminds me, and I know that they played last night, but it reminds me of the Bengals situation with Jamar Chase just last week. And for the last 2 weeks, Jamar Chase hasn't really been practicing. And then come game time, he's out there and he's 100 yards. You know what I mean? So Powers is one of those veterans that even if he's limited on a Friday, which usually isn't a great sign, and there's no more doubtful, there's just questionable and out and probable, but like Ben Powers is so seasoned that he could be limited today, and I'll be out at the facility after the show. So, we'll see what he looks like, but he's one of those veterans like, if he's out there, he's going to play.
Sorry, Cecil, I'm choking on my coffee over here, but I swear I'm okay. I knew once I started talking again, I'd be good. But yeah, my bad for coughing during that answer. Let's talk about, though, you mentioned the Jeudy Mims thing. Is it all the more reason that they should have just traded Jeudy? Because you could have gotten a third and a fifth, and you could have gotten Mims into the lineup.
Right. And look at how they're winning.
Yeah.
They're not winning
Jeudy.
because of Jared Jeudy.
No.
Yeah, not at all, and could Marvin Mims make some of those plays? Yeah, he could even make larger plays than Jerry Jeudy. And it's funny that this week we get Justin Jefferson versus Jerry Jeudy. And it's like, yeah, the Vikings are 1-4 with Jefferson. They're 5-0 without him. Now Jefferson's like an amazing talent, elite level receiver, but it would be nice if we saw Jerry Jeudy perhaps motivated by that. The guy that everyone says the Broncos should have taken instead of him in that draft in the first round. It's like, no, I had Jerry Jeudy rated as the number 1 receiver that year. I had Justin Jefferson as the number 2 receiver that year. It's fine that they got Jeudy, except he hasn't worked out and he's been a bust. You could have traded him. You could have moved on. You could have allowed more room for Marvin Mims, while Courtland Sutton still could have been, dominating out there as he's been doing during this win streak. So the Jeudy thing remains a mystery to me. Maybe he's still trading in the offseason. I don't know. He kind of doesn't fit that locker room, though, because you have a bunch of guys that are unselfish, and then there's Jerry Jeudy. And I'm not necessarily against even receivers, especially receivers, like a Stephon Diggs, being selfish. I'm not necessarily against that, but when you see the way Courtland Sutton presents himself and plays on the field, when you see Marvin Mims wants 1,000 yards. You think Marvin Mims is happy with this backup, barely used role? He's out there more. He's not doing anything. He doesn't get any targets. You think Mims is happy with that? No. Do you hear a peep out of him? No, not at all.
We did. A team player. We did hear that peep when he said it to the fans in Buffalo. Did you catch that viral video?
What did he say?
He said the guy was heckling him in Buffalo and said, 0 catches, Mims. And he turns to him and goes, well, he doesn't throw me the ball anyways. And he was trying to have fun and playful. But of course, the outlets are like the Barstool Sportses of the world took it and immediately said, Marvin Mims chucks Russell Wilson under the bus. When, there was probably a little bit of truth to it. But I do have to challenge you just a little bit on that if Mims is going to say to a fan, hey, he doesn't throw me the ball anyway, that's kind of a tell me how you really feel type moment.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that from Mims. We wouldn't have that if Jerry Jeudy was traded away. So, again, it's kind of an odd fit because you have all these team players. You have guys that can do more. And then there's Jerry Jeudy, dancing behind Steve Smith.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. No, well, we'll keep an eye on the injuries. Mace will have you up to date at denversports.com this afternoon. I think everyone but Locke's going to be able to go, and who knows? Maybe we get a miracle with PJ Locke, but if not, Kareem Jackson will be back in there. All right, it's one of our favorite times of the week. Let's go ahead and do Cecil's 5 fantasy tips presented by Hooters. And Cease, last night, my man, there was a big injury. Mark Andrews, star tight end for the Baltimore Ravens, goes down against the Bengals in the first quarter. Sounds like he's done for the year with an ankle injury. That's what Coach John Harbaugh told the media after the game. This one stinks. It stinks for the Ravens, it stinks for Andrews, and it stinks for fantasy owners. Where do people who were heavily invested in Mark Andrews at their tight end position, either making a playoff push or in the playoffs, go from here?
You've got a few spots, and the first spot is on Baltimore. If you're panicking about Mark Andrews, you don't understand the player Isaiah Likely is. Now, he's not Mark Andrews. Very few have that connection with their quarterback as Mandrews does with Lamar Jackson. But Isaiah Likely is a player that I wanted the Broncos to draft instead of Greg Dulcich. And he was down at the Shrine Bowl a couple of years ago and looks really good in terms of a receiving weapon. He's been learning to be a more well-rounded player. Coastal Carolina, I believe, top of my head. But he's the type of player that had to kind of come in and learn how to be that blocker. And as a tight end, it usually takes 2-3 years for these guys to develop and round into their games. We've got multiple examples of that. And I believe that Likely is on that track. He was just behind a superstar. There's no doubt that Mark Andrews is a superstar tight end, but Isaiah Likely is good. So if you're hurting at tight end, you're in a deeper league, look to no further than the guy right behind him, Isaiah Likely. And it's not just a next man up. Who's the other tight end? No, this guy's really good. So I anticipate that he'll let the rest of the league know just how good he is. And then in 51%, and that's half, Eddie, of the leagues out there, but in 51% of leagues, Trey McBride is available.
Whoa.
That's crazy. That's crazy talk. Yeah. So, I mean, why? Why are people like, it's Kyler Murray's favorite target. Sorry, Marquise Brown. So, like, and CSU represent, like, CSU's very own Trey McBride is out there in a lot of leagues, not every league. And perhaps if you're in a Colorado league, he's not available because CSU Rams, but like, he's available in a lot of leagues. Go double check that and make sure that he is on your team. If he's not, then finally, couple of under the radar games for Tyler Conklin with the Jets. And, they're kind of a mess anyway, but Conklin is one of those players. If you're desperate at tight end, there is help out there. It's kind of a weird year, Will, because usually with tight ends, you have no help. You either get Kelsey or Mandrews or you're done. Maybe Dallas Goedert, right? But no, there's help this year on the waiver wire in the forms of guys, like a Trey McBride.
All right, sounds good. Get to work, folks who had Mark Andrews in the bad news last night. Question number 2, Broncos and Vikings. Weird game, Cease, in terms of start 'em, sit 'em in fantasy. Obviously, we know if Justin Jefferson plays, you have to start him. But beyond Justin Jefferson, who is startable from this Broncos and Vikings game?
Yeah, I would say we looked at Ty Chandler, who was a backfield mate with Javonte Williams and Michael Carter with North Carolina. And Chandler, another player I saw at the Shrine game. I think it was the same Shrine game as as Isaiah Likely or Chige Okonkwo, one of the two. Anyway, like, he's the type of player that's a speed back. He can break tackles. You'll be shocked to know a North Carolina back that can break tackles. Yeah. But he's mostly a speed guy, right? That's his game. He's not the power guy like Javonte was. He was more the lightning like a Michael Carter was. So Ty Chandler is startable as a flex play. I don't think Chandler goes nuts against this Broncos team. They did pick up a Myles Gaskin. We'll see if Gaskin, who already knows the system, it's the Shanahan system that the Rams ran. And of course, the Miami Dolphins, wherever Gaskin's been, that's his system, wide zone. So he knows what Minnesota wants him to do, even though he's just fresh picked up by him now. I look at Jordan Addison as a problem for the Denver Broncos. Now, Fabian Moreau has been really good for this team, exceptional, and definitely an upgrade for the Denver Broncos to be sure. But Addison, that first rounder, and I think of him as a pick guy, even though he's USC his final year, he is a run after the catch machine. So it's some of those shorter passes that Dobbs will take that Addison can turn into long gains. Finally, TJ Hawkinson. We've talked enough about tight ends. You're already starting Hawkinson anyway. The Broncos, even though they got Travis Kelce taken care of, they struggle against tight ends. So Hawkinson, Addison are worth starting. Chandler's more of a flex play. Jefferson's in there as well. And on the Broncos side, it's Sutton and Javonte. Russ, if you're desperate, but you shouldn't be this week. I know 4 teams on bye, but like, it's Sutton and Javonte. That's kind of the combination that's working for this team. So we'll continue to work it for your fantasy teams.
And just real quick, has that Denver defense earned a chance to be slotted back in? I know everyone dropped them after they gave up 70, but I saw them on my waiver wire the other day and got a little tempted. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. No, that's a good point to bring up because they're different. And the thing is with Josh Dobbs, who is a great story, he's not a great quarterback. I mean, that's how many teams has he bounced to? How much film is out there on Josh Dobbs that isn't good? I saw him at the Senior Bowl in 2017 or whatever year that was. Like, Josh Dobbs is okay, and I don't want to crush everyone. It's a great story, an aerospace engineer, the astronaut. I call him the egghead quarterback. Like, yeah, that's fine. He's a great story. He's not a great quarterback. The Broncos can take care of business against this guy. And, on that win streak, and Dobbs are the darlings of the national media. Well, they're going to run up against it this week in the Mile High.
All right, let's stick on quarterbacks. That's a good segue. Joe Burrow hurts his wrist last night. We see his sort of Colt McCoy moment when, remember, Colt in the national title game 12 years ago tried to throw the ball against Alabama and just couldn't. And it was Joe trying to throw it, and it just falls out of his hands. It was like the saddest attempt ever, and you could see how distraught he was. If you've got Joe Burrow, Cease, where do you go from here? And are there any quarterbacks worth picking up? I feel like this is the worst quarterback fantasy season we've had in a decade plus.
Yeah, and scoring's down. All this stuff is reflective upon the quarterbacks who can't figure out the Fangio 6. We can blame Vic Fangio for this, everybody, because the Fangio 6 defense is what everyone's doing. It's zone concepts. It's rushing with 3 or 4. It's dropping 7 or 8. Don't make me do math, but I think I'm right. Like, that's what's happening. So what I look for is I look for bad defense plus, quarterback that's going to have to sling it, and look no further than perhaps the Las Vegas Raiders with an Aiden O'Connell. Again, Shrine Game, third reference this show. So take your drinks. Like, that's another young passer. And when I was there, people that I trust, that I really trust, I don't share this opinion, but people that I trust said O'Connell's the best QB in this class. I don't agree with that. I didn't at the time, but he certainly already was on my radar. So, rookie quarterback that could be something later on, maybe not. Look to see how it works out. Another rookie quarterback and Will Levis. So you're going to have to go young guys. If you've got Joe Burrow and maybe your backup is Derek Carr or something like that, like, you're going to have to look at some of the young guys out there. Will Levis, again, they're turning the keys over to him, and he's got some weapons, certainly, to be sure, with DeAndre Hopkins, et cetera. Kyle Phillips coming on now for that team. Like, you're going to have to look to some of the young passers, and hopefully they can come through for you. But bad defense, passing situations created, that's good news from a fantasy perspective.
Question number 4, kickers are people too. I want to get kind of a big picture question for you. For me, just personal example, I've gone through Will Lutz and Blake Groupie and Fairbairn down in Houston, and now I'm on Greg the Legs Zerline from the Jets. There's 2 different philosophies here. Do you think you should just have a good kicker and stick with him? Or especially late in the year as weather becomes a factor, Cecil, is it you need to add and drop kickers on a week-to-week basis based on matchups and maybe more importantly, weather and if they're kicking inside or outside?
Yeah, it's streaming kickers. Now, I play in leagues that have dropped the kicker position because it's kickers. And maybe you don't want your fantasy championship coming down to some guy shanking a kick or whatever, or some people do it with distance. You can be as nerdy as you want in fantasy, which is great. And I'm a super nerd, so that's great. But based on distance, and this field goal is worth this many points, and this, if it's over 50, it's worth 6 points. Like, all right, man, we're going to let kickers decide this. Like, it's already tough enough to win in fantasy, but I'm all about streaming. I give everyone the same advice every year. Maybe it's bad advice, but I'm just like, just get a kicker with your last pick, because guess what? You play in a 12-team league, you're going to have a top 12 kicker. Someone's going to dummy up. Someone's going to get hurt. You're probably going to have a top 10 kicker, maybe even a top 5 kicker. And if you can just stream kickers based on matchup, based on weather, yeah, that I'm all for that. It takes kind of the guesswork out of, hey, I didn't get Justin Tucker. Okay, well, who else you going to get? Just rotate through them. You'll be fine.
All right, well, it's working for me, so I'm glad to hear that's your advice too. Find a new kicker each week, people. That cannot be the worst thing in the world. All right, we'll close this out. Monster Monday Night Football game. Chiefs, Eagles, Super Bowl rematch. There's probably 5-6 startable guys on each side of the ball. What is your philosophy on that? And can you start too many guys in one game? Say if you have Mahomes, Pacheco, DeAndre Swift, AJ Brown, do you need to get cute on that, or do you just start all 4 of them if they're all on your roster?
Well, and I will say this. Let's say I have Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon on the same team. I'm starting both of them. I'm starting Pacheco as an RB2 with upside. I'm starting McKinnon as a flex play with upside. Like, this is that type of game. I know the Eagles backfield is a bit of a complicated mess, right? Is it a Kenneth Gainwell week? I don't care. Swift week. Who's out there? Like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Gainwell to me is kind of like a Jet McKinnon, where it's like flex play with upside. That's what you have in this game. It's incredible. So have fun with this one and think of it in a DFS terms, in a daily fantasy terms, where you're just stacking. And sometimes fantasy football is this simple, right? It's not rocket science. Sorry, Josh Dobbs. It's as simple as, who are the good teams that are playing with the good offenses? And I'm going to get as many players from those offenses. So this Monday night, just get your popcorn, cold pops, whatever you want, baby. Enjoy this one. Should be a big one in the NFL and in fantasy.
Nice. That was Cecil Lammy's Fantasy 5 ahead of Week 11, presented by our good friends over at Hooters. Cecil, great advice as always. I've got a lot of guys playing on Monday night. I'm going to start them all. I'm going to take your advice and just start them all, stack them up. Last time these two teams played, it was 38-35. I will hope for another 38-35 game. All right, guys, that was Coffee Break for Sean behind the scenes, for Cecil and Will. Rachel will be back on Monday. Enjoy all the football this weekend, everyone. Take care.